The story will be told from the perspective of the main female character. The applause for my sister's big promotion was still echoing through the room when her voice suddenly cut through the celebration. "You're fired. Security will escort you out." I hadn't even lifted my glass yet to give the toast I had prepared. The entire ballroom froze. People shifted in their chairs. The crystal glasses on the tables trembled under the lights. Around 200 guests slowly turned to look at me as if a spotlight had been placed over my head. No one stepped in. My parents stayed perfectly still. My brother didn't say a single word. I didn't beg to keep my job. I didn't argue. I calmly removed the visitor badge from around my neck, placed it beside the untouched champagne flute in front of me, and walked toward the exit while the entire room remained silent behind me. They probably thought the humiliation ended there. They were wrong. That moment was only the beginning of the countdown. I was 18 years old the first time I truly understood how my family controlled everything around them. They never made loud threats or dramatic scenes. Their way was quiet, subtle, and always worked against me. At that time, our company operated out of a warehouse in North St. Louis. The place was a gray concrete building filled with metal shelving units and long aisles of shipping boxes. The fluorescent lights on the ceiling flickered constantly and made an annoying buzzing noise that always gave me headaches. My father stood beside a cheap plastic table holding a document. The number printed at the bottom showed a salary that most of my friends would have celebrated. "Sign this," he said without looking up, flipping through shipping reports. My sister stood behind him, twirling a new set of office keys around her finger like a trophy she had earned. She was 20 then. She was loud, charming, and photogenic, which meant she always ended up posing for pictures with investors. I studied the paper in front of me, then I looked up. "I want equity in the company instead," I told him. My father didn't even lift his head. "Just take the money, Megan, it's guaranteed." But I wasn't interested in guaranteed. I wanted ownership. I slid a thin piece of paper across the table toward him. It was something I had typed up myself. Compared to the polished contract he had prepared, it looked cheap and unofficial. He sighed like I was wasting his time. Then he grabbed a pen and signed it without reading a single word. In the corner of the warehouse, a football game was playing on a small television. His attention was mostly on the screen. The crowd on TV started yelling as the team moved close to scoring. His hand shook slightly as he finished the signature. My sister leaned closer to me and spoke quietly. "You always make everything difficult," she whispered. I didn't respond. Instead, I placed the paper carefully into my folder. And in that moment, a quiet plan began forming in my mind. Over the next year, the warehouse became busier. More employees joined the staff. The sound of forklifts and packing tape filled the building from morning until night. When my father distributed bonuses, my sister received a thick envelope stuffed with cash. It made a heavy thud when she dropped it onto her desk. My bonus was a single sheet of paper. "I'll take more ownership instead," I said again. My father barely reacted. He simply signed another small percentage over to me. By then, my brother had started working at the company too. He walked around the building acting like he ran the place simply because of his last name, even though he constantly made mistakes. Once he lost an entire week's worth of shipping records. My father looked at me. "Fix it," he said. When my sister forgot to contact a major client, my mother only sighed and said she had been under too much pressure. I understood the rules quickly. If I made a mistake, it was treated like a disaster. If they made one, it was brushed aside. Everything changed in 2012 during a meeting at our old house. My sister was preparing to sign a partnership deal with another company. She smiled confidently at the board members appearing on a video call. But after reviewing the numbers, I knew the deal was terrible. It would have drained our finances for years. My father muted the call for a moment while keeping his eyes on the football game playing across the room. "So, good deal or not?" he asked. I didn't argue. Instead, I slipped an extra document into the folder. It was something I had spent weeks drafting, a protection clause. Eventually, it would become known as Article 12B. "You should sign this one too," I told him. He didn't read it. He never read anything carefully. His football team had just scored. While the replay flashed across the screen, he casually signed the page. My sister glared at me. "Why do you always insert yourself into everything?" she snapped. That word stayed with me, always. Like I was some constant inconvenience instead of the person quietly holding the business together. As the years passed, the pattern became clearer. I heard my mother praising my sister for ideas that had come from my own proposals. My brother received credit for deals I had negotiated and completed. At family gatherings, relatives would ask if I still helped out at the office as if I were a part-time assistant. I didn't explode in anger, I simply watched, and I recognized the pattern. Eventually, I stopped expecting anything different. That was the day I truly understood my place in the family. 3 hours before the gala started, I arrived early. I wanted to enter quietly before the crowds appeared. Staff members were arranging table numbers and polishing silverware. Technicians were adjusting the lights for my sister's big presentation. My name wasn't listed anywhere. I checked the event roster twice just to be sure. Large screens displayed my sister's face repeatedly as the new CEO. She smiled brightly under golden lighting. Next to her in another photo stood my brother. The caption introduced him as Vice President of Sales. Under their pictures was a bold line calling them the future leaders of the family company. My name appeared nowhere, not as a founder, not as a partner, just nowhere. A man holding a clipboard approached me. "Are you part of the catering team?" he asked politely. He didn't mean anything cruel, but the question landed exactly where years of being overlooked had already landed. Quiet, accurate. I walked past him toward the seating chart near the bar. My parents were seated at table 3. My sister and brother were at table 1 near the stage. My seat was at table 12, surrounded by names I didn't recognize. Then I noticed the label beside my name. Guest, not partner, not family, just a guest. Someone laughed behind me. I turned and saw my brother adjusting his cufflinks confidently. "You can sit wherever," he said casually without really looking at me. "Tonight isn't about you." He tossed the words out lightly like they meant nothing, but they hit exactly where he intended. Only not in the way he expected, because in that moment everything suddenly made sense. The childhood memories, the times they excluded me, the deals I built while they took the credit. The contracts they signed without reading, the titles they claimed, all of it connected into one clear truth: I had been erased long ago. Tonight was simply the version the rest of the world could finally see. I looked down at my badge. It read, Megan Guest. The plastic felt cold against my skin. I slid the lanyard back over my head and let it rest against my collarbone, a reminder of where they believed I belonged. My brother watched me, probably expecting anger or an argument. But I just exhaled slowly, so I just smiled. The second the big doors of the ballroom closed behind me, the sound of the party vanished. It felt like a thick glass wall had been placed between me and the noise of celebration. Outside, the night air in St. Louis carried the first scent of rain. Cool and steady, I didn't look back. The applause, the golden lights, and the image of my sister raising her champagne glass all faded as I walked away. My footsteps echoed calmly on the pavement. I reached my car, a black Tahoe parked under the entrance lights. The engine started with a soft hum. For a moment I simply sat there, hands resting on the steering wheel, letting the silence settle around me. I didn't feel angry, I didn't feel hurt, I just felt clarity. 3 hours. That was all the time I needed. The drive home took me along long stretches of highway. Rain had begun falling lightly, turning the asphalt into something that looked like shattered glass beneath the streetlights. I left the radio off. The only sound inside the car was the quiet click of the turn signal each time I changed lanes. When I pulled into my garage, the motion sensor light flicked on. A bright white glow spread across my workbench and the laptop that had been charging there since morning. I didn't go inside the house. I didn't remove my formal clothes. I didn't even sit down. Instead, I placed the laptop on the hood of the car and opened it. The screen lit up instantly. Face recognition unlocked everything. Every file was exactly where it needed to be. I had organized all of it long before they ever considered being afraid of me, or more accurately, before they realized they should have paid attention to the documents they signed without reading. I opened a folder labeled Continuity. Inside were files stretching back 15 years, ownership records, meeting notes, archived emails. Documents from board discussions no one else had bothered to attend, contracts they had signed blindly. It was a complete map of the company and of what would happen next. I didn't build it out of revenge. I built it because someone had to protect the business while they were busy chasing attention and titles. I began the process. I typed quickly. I attached documents. I sent them, the first things to go out were the secret emails. They went to every board member. I sent them to Mrs. Adams and Mr. Scott because those two always notice when the numbers are wrong. Then I sent one to Mr. Henderson, the leader who reads faster than anyone I know. The last one went to Mr. Miller, the lawyer who never thinks a quiet paper is unimportant. After that, I set up the delivery request. The packages with the new papers had been stamped and closed that morning. I only had to click once to have someone pick them up, 14 minutes. That was how long they had to get there. I watched a blue circle on the screen count down the time. I checked the voting site. I had built it myself years ago when I was fixing the company's computer systems. It was a simple screen with no extra colors and no way for anyone to mess with it. The numbers at the top showed how much of the company I owned. They sat there quiet and untouched. The second hour went by without any fuss. I kept working and checking every single line. I made sure the signatures were right. I checked to make sure the rule I added after my sister almost ruined us was still in the right spot. It was Article 12B, hidden deep in the company rules. It turned on if one specific thing happened. If a boss who did not own the company fired the person who owned most of it without the board saying yes, then the control of the company changed back instantly. They had handed me the trigger themselves on that stage in front of 200 people. I did not smile about it. I did not cheer. That is not how I am. I just leaned back and watched the garage light hit the metal of my car. The quiet in the room felt like a steady leak that was soaking into everything. It was a stillness I had not felt since my family started acting like characters in a play. One was the star, one was the favorite, and I was the one they forgot. I looked at the clock, 1 hour left. That was enough time for the papers to move through the system and for the board to get ready. My phone started vibrating. It was my brother, then my sister, and then my mother. None of them could get a hold of me. I had blocked every single one of their numbers since the sun came up. It was a clean start. I went back to the laptop and looked at every line again. 15 years of choices were all coming to one point. This was not about revenge. It was about how things are built. When the last file finished, I closed the laptop only halfway. I was not ready to shut it all the way yet. The sound of the laptop stopping midway felt like holding my breath. I thought about every time I fixed their mess or covered their losses. I did it because the company needed it, but tonight in my garage, the truth felt heavy. This time, I was not going to fix what they broke. I let the laptop click shut. It was a quiet sound on the concrete floor. It was a line drawn with a steady hand. The clock kept counting down without me watching. 3 hours had passed, and the big party was still shining, as if nothing had shifted underneath it. Music drifted through the room, but it was just the kind of sound that fills a space without saying anything. People were eating their desserts and laughing at little jokes. They had no idea that the whole building was already shaking under their feet. I walked back through the front doors just as the guards started moving to new spots. Their way of standing changed. First, it was small and planned. One guard locked the door on the west side. Another one closed off the hallway for the staff. There was no yelling or drama, just the way things are done. At table 1, my sister stopped laughing in the middle of a joke. My brother's phone started shaking in his hand, and then the phones of the board members did the same. Mr. Henderson stood up from his chair at the front. His face stayed the same, but his eyes got very sharp. He looked like someone who just saw all the facts line up. He moved his sleeve and gave a small nod to the guards. They shut the last of the doors. Nobody was allowed to leave. A low sound of people talking started to grow like rain before a big storm. A lady at table 6 looked at her phone, squeezed her eyes shut, and showed it to her husband. Someone else whispered, "Is this real?" And another person asked, "Why now?" The lights went down one notch. It was a soft change that the tech team did because of a program I had made a long time ago. The projector started warring, and the giant 60 FT screen behind the stage turned on. It had one title on it: Emergency Shareholder Meeting Article 12 be activated. My sister's breath hitched loud enough for the people near her to hear it. She looked around the room trying to find someone to say this was not happening. She looked at our father, our mother, our brother, anyone, but everyone was just looking at their own screens. Their phones were glowing with the papers I had sent out that morning. I walked down the middle of the room. The rug under my feet soaked up the sound of my steps. I didn't have a group of people with me, and I wasn't being dramatic. The room just seemed to open up for me. I put my laptop on the stand and opened it. The voting screen grew across the huge display behind me. The white screen looked very bright against the dim gold lights of the room. "Good evening," I said. My voice was steady. The microphone made it sound very clear. Under Article 12B, control goes back to the person who owns the most shares. A paper has been filed, Mr. Henderson walked up and stood next to me with his hands together, motioned to resend the appointments of the CEO and the vice president of sales. Do I have a second? He asked. Yes, second. Second, voices called out. It was a chain reaction. Mrs. Adams spoke up. Mr. Scott spoke up. 3 others did too. Their voices were strong. They did not wait. My years of handling the numbers had made them trust me a long time ago. The vote started. It showed green for yes and red for no. The first number popped up right away, 58%. Then it went to 61%, then 65%, and then 67%. The guests leaned forward to watch the numbers change on the screen. Every click from every person who owned a share made a sound in the room without being loud. When it hit 69%, my sister jumped forward. Stop this. You can't vote on a night like tonight. This is my ceremony, she yelled. Mr. Henderson did not even look at her. This is a legal meeting, miss. Please step back, he said. My brother tried to help from another spot. Megan, come on. This is family, he said. I looked at him. This is structure, I said. Mr. Miller, the lawyer, spoke from near table 4 while holding up his phone. And it's binding, he added. The number moved one more time, 73%. The bar on the screen turned into a solid green line. A big quiet moved through the room like a slow wave. Someone dropped a silver spoon. A glass of champagne leaned over but did not fall. The band playing music stopped in the middle of a note. Their bows stayed in the air. Mr. Henderson spoke first. Motion carries effective immediately, he said. My sister stared at the screen like she could make the pixels change if she looked hard enough. This is a mistake. You blindsided us, she said. I did not give her an answer. I clicked to the next slide. It was the paper that confirmed the change of power. The rules were simple and real. There was no extra talk. A gasp came from the middle of the room and then another. My brother's phone slipped out of his hand and hit the floor with a hard crack. My parents stayed frozen. My mother's fingers were shaking near her necklace. My father blinked slow like he was reading everything for the first time. He wasn't just reading the papers. He was seeing what happens when you sign things for years without looking. The projector kept humming. The screen stayed there. It didn't need to move. The change was done. 4 months later, the office building felt different before I even walked inside. It wasn't louder or more busy. It just felt right. It was the steady feeling a building has when nobody is trying to break it apart just to get attention. The morning sun came through the windows in a straight line across the floor. It was bright but not too warm. It was a perfect balance. My office was at the end of the hall where the old closet used to be. The name on the door was made of simple steel. It wasn't fancy or for show. It just had my name and the title the vote gave me. I touched the surface once. It felt cool and smooth. Then I pushed the door open. Inside, everything was quiet. It wasn't a dead silence. It was just a quiet that made sense. I could hear the air moving and the sound of someone typing down the hall. My papers were stacked the way I like them. The screen on my computer was moving through soft colors. This is how a business should breathe. It shouldn't have big egos pressing against the walls or a mess hidden behind big smiles. It shouldn't be a stage for a play. I put my bag down and opened the blinds. From my window, the city was moving like it always does. Cars were in traffic and people were walking against the wind. Everyone was minding their own business. And for the first time in a long time, so was I. My sister put her lake house up for sale after the vote. The pictures of it were all over the internet. Bowls of fruit, clean counters, and empty rooms that tried too hard to look like someone lived there. My brother tried to find a new job, but the legal papers he signed kept him from working for a competitor. My father and mother moved away to a quiet life in Arizona soon after. They wanted to avoid questions they didn't know how to answer. They all tried to talk to me eventually. They sent texts, left messages, and sent emails to old addresses. They had apologies and stories and ways they wanted to change the past. I let all of those messages go into a filter I set up a long time ago. None of them got through. I didn't need them to. Some stories don't need doors to be slammed. Some don't need big speeches or a huge win or a final fight. Sometimes the end is just a room that is steady, quiet, and yours. Some people think that power belongs to the person with the microphone. They are wrong. Power sits quietly in the papers that nobody bothered to read. It is in the names people signed too fast. It is in the rules they never thought would move against them. My family learned that, and I learned something even more simple. Being quiet is not being weak, it is direction.